Tarmor here with a very quick tutorial on rounding numbers or styling numbers and the effect that they have in Microsoft Excel. So I've got a version of Excel open up on the screen behind me, and all I'm going to do is increase the size of sort of how things appear on the screen so that you can see them better by clicking on sort of the zoom. All we're doing is just making the cells a little bit larger so that we can see the details. I'm going to randomly select a cell here, it happens to be C3, and I'm going to type in a number. And that number has a whole series of decimal places. If I click on here, we can see up in the formula bar that the number that I typed is 5.123456789. And because of the width of the cell, it's only able to show some of that value. If I make the cell wider by dragging its margin up top, I can see more of that value. However, sometimes we don't want the full precision of this number. We want to round it so that we're getting a value presented to only, let's say, 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 decimal places, so that we don't have this large series of digits. So let's just label this as number, and I'm going to make it bold by clicking on the big B here, but I'm also going to have here another value that is going to be digits. Oh, maybe I'll justify these, just make them look nice. And I'm going to start off by putting in the number 3. This is the number of digits that I want to round my value to. So if we were to round this digit, or this number, let's put this again over here, I can put in the function, I say equals round, open bracket, click on the value that we want to round, the value that's in C3, comma, the number of digits, we're going to take that value from here. We're going to close the brackets and hit enter, and notice that we now have this number up here rounded to 3 digits. The nice thing about having this as a formula is that if I go in here and I change this 3 to a 4, then it now automatically rounds my value to 4 digits. I can change this value and I get the value presented to me in rounded form. Let's go put this back to 3 just for a moment. However, what I can also do is put in a version that is styled, which means that it's going to look like it's rounded, but it's only changing how it is presented on screen in rounded form. So all I'm going to do is put equals C3, and I'm just going to copy the value from that cell into this one. Exactly the same value. And now, rather than using the equals round function, I'm going to go up here to these tools, which increase the decimal places and decrease the decimal places. So if I click on this button, notice that the number in the cell gets shorter, and when we get down to this level, we have the same number. Now the number in the cell is still the full precision, we're just showing it or styling it to look like it has 3 decimal places. Whereas when we use the round function, it actually rounds the number and it cuts off the remaining decimal places. And while they look the same, they behave differently in this scenario. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine over here in E6, I start a new function, and I take the value that's in this cell over here, and I multiply it by, let's say, 20. And we get some new number, 102.46. If I do the same thing in this cell, equals this value here times 20, so the same function, we're multiplying by 20, and we get something that looks like, well, 102 point, oops, wrong cell. Okay, if we increase the number of decimal places in each of these, we see that we now have different numbers. The one on the top is calculating based on a value that was actually rounded and then the additional precision cut off. The bottom one does the multiplication with the full precision of the number as it was entered here in our original cell, C3, which is the same value that we have here. And while we use the styling buttons here to change how it looks, the full precision is still there and available for calculation. And the important message here is that if we round numbers too soon, and we need to use those numbers again and again through more calculation, we end up with a result that is not necessarily as precise as what it would be if we maintained that full precision and then rounded at the end. And of course, if we took either of these and we sort of rounded them down to sort of say 1 decimal place, they're going to look the same. But if we have more decimal places, we can see that the values in the cells actually differ. So the difference being actual rounding with the round function, or simply styling them on the screen to make them look a particular way. And I would recommend that we use styling until the very end and then use rounding once we know that we don't need to use the full precision of the value for further calculation. So that's it for today. Hope this helped you understand the difference between rounding and styling. Stay tuned, we'll have more lessons coming at you shortly.